Hello, hello. I am Cindy Ola, and I have Olga Miller with me once again. We are coming to you, or Olga is coming to you today with an astrological forecast for January and February. Olga, how have you been? How was the holidays for you?
They were a little quiet, which was good. This is what I needed after that or lunar eclipse in November. I really needed it for myself because it hit my chart directly. So I was just kind of enjoying, quiet time and not having to do too much hustle and too much partying and all of that. So it was good. I loved it. How was yours?
It was pretty good too. Not too much
Yeah.
chaos. I mean, a few things going on. Got to enjoy some of the holiday celebration, but it was interesting though. I think December, January, there was definitely an interesting feeling going on for me and a lot of other people that I've talked to, like I don't know, purging, nesting. I think that's
Yeah.
common when we get about this time of year where
Mhm.
you feel like purging and you feel the cusp of spring coming. The daffodils are starting to push up from the ground, so you can feel from nature like this natural readiness to come out of hibernation, like getting ready for new things, like new beginnings, new things coming, the springtime. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, and I think it's actually makes sense because now, as of at this point, all of the planets went direct. We had some retrograde planets back in January, December, but now everything, or I guess up until today, everything is going direct now, including Uranus. So you're gonna start feeling that movement and progress being made. And I think that Mars retrograde actually hit quite a lot of people I know in a hard way, especially if you're Capricorn rising was a lot of flu cases, especially for them, and just that energy, lack of energy, shaking off the cold. It took a little while, but I am glad Mars is going forward. So now we're starting, to gain our momentum and move forward for this new year that is coming.
Yes, I'm looking.
And
Yeah, I could definitely feel there's like a sense of levity that came through over the past couple of weeks or so.
I agree with you. So I looked at our forecast for the year, and sorry we missed the earlier one, but it's been a little bit, time to just, as you said, nest a little. So going forward, let me share my screen with you, and we can just talk a little bit about what's happening with the end of January and February as far as forecast concerned. And also, there are big shifts happening in the sky for March. One of them is Saturn moving into Pisces, and Pluto is moving into Aquarius. So those are, you probably have heard about. There are probably, big changes happening depending on the area of your chart, but we can dive a little bit into those as well. So let me share my screen with you guys. So yes, can you see it, Cindy?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. So I did a little bit of playing with what the aspects hold for this year. And overall, we don't really have anything majorly disruptive or difficult for January, February timeframe. Another good day to accomplish mundane tasks is February 16th. And that's when Sun will conjunct to Saturn as well. So occasionally it feels like a little bit of those damper days. It's like, oh, I don't really feel like doing anything. I'm a little bit kind of depressed, but this is a good day. Just, roll up your sleeves. If you need to clean out that cupboard of yours, go for it. Organize taxes or whatever else you want to allocate for that day. There are a few good days for something creative and spiritual. That's usually our Neptunian involvement, Venus and Mercury, and those would be February 6th and 7th, as well as February 16th. So just look for those days, maybe if you want to uh, socialize with, let's just say, one of those sips and strokes, whatever people do these days, or maybe if you're a creative type and artistic type, good time to just do some project or work on a painting, whatever else you want to do, or just play music. It's all good days for that.
Mhm.
Logic might not be the best time for this transits, just because Neptune tends to kind of blur our logical channels, if that makes sense, because it's dissolves everything. It's more spiritual. It's a higher octave of Venus, so it does a lot of artistic and creative things for us. There are
Yes.
some good days for what's that? Oh, I thought
No,
you
I
said
was
something.
just agreeing, yes, about Neptune. I was thinking about Neptune when you were describing the essence or the feeling of Neptune. And I
Yeah,
was, yeah.
it's just a great mystic. So there are some good days for fun and optimism. That's usually our Jupiter when it's forms beneficial aspects with Mercury and Sun and some other planets like Venus. But you feel pretty much more optimistic, and it's just good days to maybe if you haven't been able to accomplish something, that's like, okay, this is the day I'm going to give it another try and maybe I'll succeed. So those are January 24th and 25th, as well as February 18th. Mental activity, problem solving, learning, studying. Those would be the good days of January 29, 30, February 10 and 11, February 22nd, and February 23rd. Those are usually our Mercury aspects to Uranus and Pluto. So Pluto tends to dig very deeply and investigate and unearth something maybe that is hidden, which is its quality. And Uranus tends to think outside of the box, be more creative, curious about things. It is innovative. So those would be the good days to undertake new things in terms of learning, problem solving. If you haven't been able to resolve something for a while, those are good days to try it out and see how it works out for you.
Isn't Uranus a higher
And
octave of Mercury? Is that right?
yeah.
Did I get that one right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's a modern ruler of Aquarius. So it's at the moment it's forming a square to the Aquarius house in people's chart because right now it's in Taurus. But when it's a square energy, to me, it's a creative tension. It's like we have a problem, it's brewing, and unless I try different things, I won't be able to resolve it. So it's like that hustle and bustle. And if you think about when you're getting that tension, it's almost like heat generating, which is a very Martian trait, right? Until you solve it, and then boom, it's the solution. So once Uranus, in about 3 years or so, moves out of Taurus, it will go to Gemini. So it will form a trine to its own house. So anything that is going on with Aquarius will move forward very easily. But right now, it's a bit of that tension. So we had that square a little while ago with Saturn and Uranus. And I don't know how people felt it. For me, it was more about who I am in my career. And it was that almost like a stumbling block. You're like, you run forward and then you stop because that
Mm-hmm.
Saturn would just pose us limitations. So I I actually felt it for me. And to me, astrology is a trial. I need to see my own chart and
Mm-hmm.
experience it. And then I know, oh, I know what it feels like. I know when Pluto conjunct your sun, you feel like there is a very dark cloud around you, and everything else is happy, and you're just kind of like brewing and trying to process those emotions. So those things are interesting to experience. And I think the more you are in tune with the planets, the more sensitive you become to that. Like,
Exactly. I had
if
the
it's,
same experience with it as
yes,
well. You can look at your astrology chart or take in this information and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what any of this means. But
yes.
when you then integrate it and you take some time with it and sit with how you were actually feeling and the
Mm-hmm.
experiences that you were having, and then you compare that to what's going on then with your chart, then you can have that visceral understanding instead
Yes.
of it just looking at a piece of paper and going, what does any of this even mean?
Absolutely. And I really think that everybody should know their chart just because it is so helpful to understand yourself, understand what your limitations are, and how can you overcome those, right?
Feels like you're learning a new language. It can be daunting when you're first looking at at everything that's going on and the languaging, and once you're willing to delve into it and give it some time
Mhm.
and give it some study, it really is. I mean, yes, it's totally worth it.
Yes, I totally agree. It definitely helped me to know what my talents are and just develop them going forward. So now I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any doubts what I want to do or where I need to go in life. Well, there are a few more aspects. Let's just maybe cover those before we dive into the more deeper topic on Saturn and Pluto movements. But for breaking routine in general, is the good day is February 8th and 9th. That's when Venus is sextile Uranus. And this is the day you probably want just to do something unusual. Maybe go hang out with your friends in a different place, right? Because Uranus likes to have unusual things and Venus likes to socialize. It may not be a day where you meet a person and you say, this is my friend for life, but it is a day definitely to look at things differently and say, I'm just going to have fun and I'm just going to maybe talk to that person. I have no idea who they are. They look something, maybe not someone like I want to hang out with normally, but I'm just really curious about their life and just go with it, go with the flow. Don't go crazy, but go with the flow on this day. For taking deep breath and just going with the flow and not getting bothered too much is going to be February 3rd and 4th. So this is the day when Sun, our personality, our inner light, it's squares Uranus, and Uranus is an unexpected things, right? With Uranus, you may have heard a phrase, expect the unexpected. So this is the day where there's a square, so it's a tension energy. So you may drive the car and somebody cuts you off suddenly, and the rest of the day you just kind of ruined for you, or your boss comes in and say it needs to be done tomorrow, and you're like rushing and like, I didn't expect it, I didn't anticipate it. So this is just walk away. Maybe in those days, just take a deep breath and like, it's going to be fine. It's just a transit. Everybody's going to be in there, full mind afterwards. So it's not going to bother me for too long. Do meditation, do some yoga at the end of the day. That may help.
Mm-hmm.
And for focusing on important things to you, it's going to be probably January 29 and 30, because Sun trines Mars. And Mars is, it's more of a selfish energy. It's our drive, but it's also more of like me, because it's the opposite of Venus, which is, incorporating other people, building relationships. Mars is most like what I want to do. And since it's trine Sun, it would be a good day just like take a look at your projects. This is not the day to please someone and say, would this particular interest of mine interest everybody else? Who cares? Figure out if this is interesting to you, because long term you're going to be happier, giving a little bit more freedom to your own thinking and your own drives than having to please everybody, especially for those of us who tend to serve others. Whether it's at work, whether it's at home, mothers, fathers, all of that. Take that day, those couple of days, just think, what is it interesting to you? And Mars gives us energy. So having a trine with the Sun, it's going to be a high energy day. Maybe do some exercise. That would be a good day as well for that. So those are the aspects, like nothing major, nothing extreme that is happening for January and February until we get to March. And that is when we're going to go through planetary changes. And Cindy, do you have any questions on anything we talked about so far?
No, it all looks good. It all makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just excited not to have Mercury and Mars retrograde anymore. I have to say that.
I know. When did Mars go out of retrograde again? I know we talked about this
January
last time. I can't remember
12th.
the date.
So it went October 30th to January 12th. And
January
it's still,
12th.
it's still a little sleepy, so it's gaining momentum up until full speed in March. But at least we're not in that backlog energy anymore.
Yeah, I could feel it, definitely. I felt something for sure shift.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
yeah, low energy.
I'm happy too.
I know it. It's like you don't feel like doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So now our big hitters. So Saturn,
Yeah.
Saturn's gonna enter Pisces on March 7th, and it's gonna stay there until February 15th, 2026. So Saturn goes approximately 2.5 years per sign. So it's a long haul. And when we have planets going slow heaters, like slow movers, like Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, we tend to feel it a little bit more, because unlike moon that goes 2.5 days per sign, we don't even have a time to associate with that feeling, emotion, or change in our life, right? Like you got mad or you got sad and then it moved and you into a different emotion. Here with Saturn, it's a slow building and slow destructuring. So Saturn tends to ask us very tough questions. It's our taskmaster. It's a teacher. It's that, stern teacher that you have in class. And he says, well, have you read your assignment today? And you say, oh, no, I did not. Well, he says, well, there is a consequences for that. So this is how we look at Saturn. But on the other hand, it knows exactly how to give you incredibly strong foundation. So later on in life, when you are struggling with something, you remember those foundations and you're able to function well, right? So
Saturn,
to me,
it
foundation
has
is
been in
necessary.
Aquarius, hasn't it?
It
Saturn has
has been
been
in
in Aquarius,
Aquarius
which has
for,
actually been in a because Aquarius is a Saturn sign. So
it
how would
is.
you have described the past 2.5 years or so with Saturn in Aquarius? Like what have been the sensations, just so maybe people can understand the past 2.5 years where Saturn was in the Aquarius mood.
Yes. So Saturn and Aquarius. So to me, Saturn and let's just move maybe even back, going to Saturn and Capricorn. So both signs in traditional astrology are ruled by Saturn. Saturn in Capricorn is definitely that taskmaster, stern teacher personality. When it moves into the Aquarius, it's a higher octave of it, right? It's more about people in society and community. So to me, I think the restructuring that is going on right now, especially in the government, is not a complete surprise because Saturn asks the tough questions. So things that do not work, they're broken, right? They're destroyed, they are let go, and only the strength is left, and you rebuild based on that strength. Whatever is working is going to work long term. Whatever doesn't work, it starts crumbling. It's like that bridge, right? It starts crumbling if it doesn't have a strong foundation or if it hasn't been maintained in a while. So you see those cracks in the foundations, but they crumble as well. So this is how I
So
see
like
it.
the past 2.5 years, if you've looked at everything that we've gone through, even collectively, it's not a surprise that it's been happening while Saturn has been in Aquarius because of the collective. Because you say
Yes.
Aquarius is like a more of a collective
It's
sign,
a
right?
community collective. Yes.
It's a community collective. So how the community and the collective have been affected so much these past 2.5 years with politics and with the
Yes.
pandemic and with everything that's been happening.
Yes, absolutely. And if you do look at individual charts, so for some people, let's just say that you have Aquarius in a sixth house, which is a daily work. It's responsibilities at home. It's being a mother. It's being a father. It's that mundane things with health and maintaining your body. So it could have manifested for some people as maybe like wake up call. Hey, your health is not where it needs to be. Here's how you monitor it, or how this is how you find a new routine. Or it could be a completely increased responsibility at work. And then you just end up working so much harder. But the good thing with Saturn, if you follow the tough lessons, you are able to get rewarded at the end. And this is what I would look for. Okay, I know it's a tough time to study, to maintain your body, to do maybe additional responsibilities at work. But at some point, you know that there's a reward coming, and you're like, okay, I can breathe now. Now that Saturn is leaving Aquarius, it's good. If it's gone through somebody's seventh house, that was a time to look at your relationships, right? Whether you are working as a contractor, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your significant friends, business associates, and you're taking a hard look at all of those relationships and say, which ones do I want to take in the future with me, and which ones I just want to let go of? And that's what Saturn does. It says whatever doesn't work, it's going to break. Whatever works is going to become much stronger and solidify, because Saturn's nature is solidify things as well. So this is what may have been experienced. And now that it's moving to the Pisces, the way astrologers usually interpret things, besides all the experience that they've gained over the years, it's also like synthesis of the sign and the planet and how they work together. So the slide that we have right now up, it's basically just a characteristic of the planet, which is Saturn, and what Pisces is about. So it's, Pisces is about compassion. and love of universe, and it's ocean, it's sea life, it's it's mental health, it's religion, it's creativity, music, it's charitable things. So if we start,
It's my I was
what,
gonna say it's my I'm a Pisces rising. So I'm
well,
very interested to see how the next 2.5 years are going to feel with for people that are Pisces rising.
yeah, for people who are Pisces rising, it's maybe a more serious outlook on life and reorganizing yourself, and how you communicate those things may come different, a little bit differently across. Because remember, the first house is um, how we are seen by others. It's our mask, right? That we wear for everybody else. So for you, it's probably going to be more of a serious outlook on life. That's one of the things. And maybe just restructuring how you deal with things, even like it's a physical stamina for us. So it could be increased responsibility and increased focus on what you want to do for your own health, for yourself, right? How you want to go into the future. So this is what I would probably pay attention to. So overall, maybe some increased responsibility, or it's just growth potential across the board, whether it's at home or whether it's at a career, is all gonna I guess come through with the Saturnian touch of the Pisces for a
At
little
the
while.
end, yeah, at the end, once you've gone through whatever Saturn is
Yes,
showing
absolutely.
you, or the lessons that it's bringing you at the end, it's going to um I don't know, you'll come through on the other side with a different perspective, or something that that's meaningful and that sticks, and that's in the end helpful.
Absolutely. So if we look
Mm-hmm.
at overall what those two signs together may, or what the planet and sign may bring to us, I would say that my interpretation will be maybe tougher laws, because Saturn rules organization, government laws. Laws is more Jupiter thing, but it's more like a government approach to things. I would say maybe taking a look at our pollution levels, at the sea life, how what we're doing for the environment. That would be another thing. I would say it could be questioning for some people, depending on their house, but it would be questioning of the traditions, maybe some religious questions as well. Why are we doing things a certain way? It could be a more structured approach to mental health, which is Pisces, right? How do we build strong foundation? What is important? Perhaps there'll be more people in the community and society looking at, hey, anxiety is a real thing for people, depression is a real thing. What are we doing wrong? How do we restructure it, and how do we build stronger foundation going forward? It could be also physically, like, as I talked about those bridges, it could be crumbling of the bridge that hasn't been maintained in a while. And, you have to either rebuild it, or it's going to crumble and fall into the water. It's erosion of coastal lines. That could be another manifestation of that. But in general, for the individual, take a look where you have Pisces, where you have Saturn. If you have it in your, for example, 11th house of dreams, hopes, future plans, organizations, take a look at that. It could be manifesting for you, saying, hey, if you have this dream, how do you solidify it? How do you make it reality, right? Or if it's in your, let's just say, a house of career, it could be when Saturn tends to go through the house of the career, it says, hey, here's your promotion. You've been working so hard, and I see those inputs from you, and here's your promotion for the career. You're becoming a big boss, for example. Or even like an independent employee who can make their own income. But those are some potential manifestation. Astrology is not the exact science, it's interpretation. As we talked about, it's another language, it's a sign language.
Mm-hmm.
And when you combine synthesis, it could be several manifestations of the same thing, but the energy itself is going to stay there. You're still going to feel that. And this is pretty much on Saturn and Pisces. Now Pluto, the planet that everybody tends to be scared of, and to me, it's the more I look at it, I think we all have Pluto, right? It's like it's somewhere in our chart, and people tend to be
Like,
scared.
I actually like Pluto. I
That's,
guess
well, me
because of
too.
all the work, the focus of the work that I do too. like going into the realms of the unconscious and the shadow work with the energy healing that I do. I don't know. I dig Pluto. He seems
I
to be.
I agree. I agree with you, Cindy. So Pluto tends to
Mm-hmm.
get bad reputation, but here to me, there's an expression, and the worst thing, I think it maybe Mark Twain, the one who said it, the worst thing that happened to me in my life happened in my head, right? So we're thinking about this Pluto and we start drawing this picture in our head, how horrible it's going to be. What Pluto does, yes, it has the quality where it takes away things from us without any warning, and it doesn't take
Yeah.
anyone as a hostage. It just literally demolishes everything that doesn't belong to you. But
It has
once you
like that Kali, the goddess Kali. It's
yes.
very Kali-esque energy where if you're ever having like a Kali season in your life where things are just being destroyed and taken
Mhm.
apart, but it's always done out of love though, because the Kali deity or that Kali energy only destroys things that we can't seem to take care of ourselves. You can have the things that you've actually been praying for. So, in other words, you've been praying for these changes in your lives, but haven't been able to take the steps to do it because of our strong
Mhm.
attachment. So that energy comes through and says, oh, we're going to take it down for you.
Yes, and so Pluto is transformational. It's regeneration. It's that phoenix
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the ashes. You also cannot have the beginnings without endings, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we have a finite time in our life. We have finite time during the day. So how much of those extra things that you keep dragging on with you that are literally taking away your time from something you really truly want to do, right? So yes, Pluto tends, to take away jobs that really do not work for us, and
Mm-hmm.
to or reject us from the things that we thought were for us, but it really is not. So rejection is a protection. I think Nicholas Ashba says he's one of the tarot readers, but in general, I think it's a psychological growth, right? So if Pluto is going through someone's ninth house, it's going to be psychological growth in life. If Pluto is going through someone's second house of money, which is probably going to be Capricorn rising, like right now in Aquarius, that would be a transformation on how we make our income, right? How we generate our income. It may not come from the original source of your job, it could be something else.
My Aquarius is in the 12th house. So that will be an interesting thing to see as well. Because, Saturn just came out of Aquarius, out of my
Mhm.
12th house. And now Pluto is going to be going into the 12th house,
The way
my
I would
12th house.
describe Pluto going through the 12th house, it's going to shed anything that does not belong to you and let only come out what is true to who you are. So all pretenses are going to be shed, because this is the 12th house is a house of seclusion. It's house of meditation and higher realms. So you may experience some regeneration in that area and how you view things. So it's almost like that raw energy that is, or who you are, it's going to remain, and everything else is just going to fall off. The superficial stuff is going to fall
Mm.
off. And that's what Pluto does. So it transforms us. At the end, are we glad that it's left a certain house? Yes. Are we glad and the
But
version
then
that
it's
we
just going to enter
become?
another
Yes.
house, though.
What's that?
I was like, you're going to be glad it leaves one house, but then it's just going to enter another one. It's
Yeah.
not like
So
it ever goes. In other words, it's not like it ever goes away.
it does not. No, it's always there. So to me, it's our psychological growth in every area. So it says,
Yeah.
hey, I know you're growing in this area, for example, of relationships. Now let's figure out your income in retirement, or how you deal with your partner's income, and so on. So it's the area that we're meant to cover in our lifetime and transform into something better. This is how I look at it. And it's also, so Pluto does other things. It tends to do investigating work. So people with a strong Pluto in their charts tend to become detectives, or it's also psychologists, so they can do like psychological trauma patients. It deals with addictions as well, abuse of power, And it does tend to reveal what's hidden, right? So it's almost like, lifting that rock and seeing what's under it. It's like, is it worthwhile of keeping, or is it letting go? Now, Aquarius, it's very different. So it's a new age, it's technology, it's being invented, thinking outside of the box. It's a science, it's astrology, it's alternative medicines, all of that. So it will be interesting how Pluto combines with Aquarius, and it is possibility that we're going to start looking at technology a little bit different way. We're going to transform the way we use it, right? For example, right now it's mostly used in business and transactions. But if you think about this, can it be possibly used for health, right? How can we, like, I almost like think it's like, if you ever watch Orville, that show where they have the little scanner and it's kind of scans person's body and says, oh, I know where the problem is and I know where everything is okay, right? So I'm almost like envisioning that as a Pluto in Aquarius, it's unearthed something through technology and helps you to become better and wholer, or whole, comparing to what you were before. It could be, increased interest in alternative medicine and astrology as well. It could grow as a direction. It could be, some cool scientific discoveries that we haven't even thought of. We think we know everything, but really we don't. We learn and we develop our entire lifetime. And for individuals, of course, it's going to impact your houses, depending where you have Aquarius happening. If Aquarius is in your seventh house of relationships, then you end up just looking at the relationships themselves and maybe changing in some ways, or they will be changing in some ways. But whatever relationships are meant, it's kind of similar to Saturn. They will stay and they will transform into what serves you for your highest good. It could
I'm trying to understand the dates that are up there. So March 24th, 2023 to June 11th. What's the second date, the January 22nd?
So what happens is Pluto switches into the Aquarius. That's a good point, Cindy. It moves on March 24th into Aquarius. But the way planets move, they go through retrograde, basically, right? So once it dips into the Aquarius, it's going to stay there until June 11th of 2023. Then it goes back to a Capricorn one more time, saying, hey, have you learned your lessons? What have I taught you? Have you grown in the way you're supposed to? It's going to stay in a Capricorn at the very top degrees at 29, 28, maybe 27. And then it's going to dive back into the Aquarius and move forward and stay in Aquarius for another 20 years.
So wow, 20 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So the preview what this energy may feel for your house, it will you will have the most feeling of it probably when it starts moving in March, April, May, and June. Then you're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna take a breather. Now it goes back where it is comfortable, right? And then it's gonna move forward again. But you already have that preview, what to look forward to, how it may potentially change for you. And again, if you have planets in Aquarius, every time Pluto goes through that planet, through that degree, in a matter of the next 20 years, it's going to somehow transform, whether if you have like a Mercury, it may transform your thinking, right? And I would say sometimes we tend to be a little bit more paranoid when Mercury and Pluto have a conjunction, because Pluto tends to dig and obsess about things. But at the same time, you can really, truly make really good discoveries if you're like single-minded, focused on something specific. If Pluto goes, let's just say, through your planet through Venus, you may have this obsessive relationship with someone, or you may have this intense feelings. It's, is one of the manifestations and examples, because Pluto is intense, and, Venus is about love and relationships. So
Pluto is as you mentioned, it's in Capricorn at the moment. So it has been in Capricorn for the past 20 years. Is that right?
No, Pluto it's entered Capricorn in 2008. Pluto doesn't have, because of its elliptical orb, it doesn't stay the same amount of time. It's one of those unusual planets. It changes. I can't remember how long. I want to say it's 25 years in Pisces. So it was much less in Capricorn. Then it's, gain momentum, 20 years in Aquarius, and then it's going to increase when it goes to Pisces. and then it's like slowly start decreasing again. So it's just the elliptical. But for the
Okay.
purposes of Aquarius, for the long stay, Pluto is gonna be there for 20 years. The thing is with Aquarius, it's a
I'm
fixed
looking at the
energy.
two. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just the Capricorn, how it's been in Capricorn since 2008, you said.
Yes.
And I was looking at like my Capricorn was in the it's in the 11th house and Jupiter is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm just gonna have to like analyze how my past that has been from 2008 until now, and like try to integrate how I've felt that, how I've experienced Pluto in Capricorn in my 11th house, where Jupiter is for the past however many years that is.
So I would look at the time when Pluto conjunct your Jupiter, because Jupiter tends to amplify everything that's going on in that house, right? So look at
Mm-hmm.
the events, and I could take a look at the ephemeris, but I don't remember your degrees. Look when you had Jupiter Pluto conjunction, what significant events were happening in your life, because those are usually, giveaways of that energy coming through that house. If you have a house with no planets, it doesn't mean you're not impacted, because there's still, other aspects that Pluto could form an opposition or a square or a trine or a sextile to your other planets. It doesn't, but that house will still be transformed for you. It's just not going to be
Mm-hmm.
as impactful as when there's a conjunction, because when conjunction happens, that energy of the outer planet, which is Pluto, to something that is an inner planet like Mercury or Venus, it's going to be more potent for that person, and they're going to feel it so much more than when they have like an empty house and there are other aspects happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I
So
don't
that
have any planets in
forecast.
Aquarius.
What's that?
I said I don't have any planets in my 12th house or Aquarius, so
So it will be just a general then. It's
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
anything. It will
Uh-huh.
be just a general transformation of the area for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I have for you today. So, if do you have any more questions or anything else we want to touch on?
No, I think this is great. And Olga and I were talking too. She is going to, I think we still need to solidify the date, but it's probably going to be sometime in February where she's going to offer a little lesson. How would you describe your little lesson for people who are trying to understand their charts, right?
Yeah, to me, I would say it's more about understanding what astrology does and what the chart does, right? Because someone who
Mm-hmm.
never done it before, if you describe to them how, here is the sourdough bread, and they've never had sourdough bread before, they're like, I have no idea what it is. So I would say it's basically kind of giving you an idea of what is it, what the astrologers do, what is the chart does, how do we look at it, and what areas to look for yourself and what planets to look for yourself. So it's going to be just a brief introduction on about astrology. If you're ever interested to know, like, what is it, what is the sixth house, what is the 12th house, what is the Mars, or what is Mercury, what do they mean for me? So this is mostly going to be that type of lesson, just give you a background and foundation, what it all means, and why is it important to look at your moon, sun, and rising sign.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we will be putting that on the schedule. Probably by the time this video goes up in on YouTube, we'll have the dates. I can put the link on there if you're interested in taking, or it's a complimentary class that Olga's offering on an introduction to astrology. Now, she's not going to be working individually with each person. Now, if you have questions, I'm sure she'll be happy to answer questions, but it's not going to be like a chart interpretation for every single person that's on there, but simply trying to give you an understanding. So if you're interested in taking this class, it would be a great idea to go ahead and pull your own chart, I'm guessing, right? Like have your chart available to you, so that you can go through some of the tips and the points that Olga is pointing out. And hopefully then your chart will make some sense to you, and you can start to look at it without being completely like you're looking at something that's totally foreign. It will
Yes.
make some sense to you. So we'll be putting putting so it's going to be through Zoom, and we'll be putting that link in the description of this video. The space will be limited. So if you're interested in taking that course, just make sure to register, and then we will send you a link to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there she
I'm looking
has some of the
forward to it.
houses, the topics of the houses
Yeah,
that
this is
she
the
has
topics
there.
and places to get your free chart. It's AstroSeek and AstroCharts if you want to pull it up. I go with the traditional house system. There is under AstroSeek, there is an option to pull it as a traditional house. I think it pulls it out in placidus, which is a little bit different. The difference between traditional and placidus is that in traditional, you have a whole sign per house. And that's how it was
And I think they
calculated.
have it that way too, because I know, like on mine, it'll give you the option. So yeah, that's a good point. If you're pulling up your house to, for it to make sense with the way Olga's going to interpret it, you would want the whole sign,
Mhm.
traditional, or the whole sign instead of the how do you say placidus? So make
Placidus,
sure.
there's a Koch, there is I'm blanking right now. I mean, there is a quadrant. I mean, there's tons of systems that they came up with over the years, but they want to go
Mm-hmm.
with traditional astrology.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight, and I can't wait to see how what the big hitters in March, how that's going to begin to play out. Now, when I do have one question, when both Saturn and Pluto go into Mars, since they stay in those houses for so long, do you think the effect will be immediate, or will it? Um, is it like a slow burn?
It depends, right? So if the house doesn't have any planets, it could be very slow going, right?
Okay.
If the house has a planet, you start feeling Pluto approach, I want to say a few months before it starts. You really start feeling some kind of shift in energy, in a few weeks for Saturn. But as it starts approaching the degree, as it goes within like 1 or 2 degrees of your planet, you're going to start feeling that. And the reason why I say
Okay.
Pluto's month, maybe in Saturn is weeks or so days, it's because how fast it's moving, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the key is to have 1 or 2 degrees before your planet, then it hits your planet, that exact degree, and then it's going to be departure. So it's going to be a few days, a few weeks, a few months. So you're going to feel that. The thing is with the retrogrades, as they move backwards, they're going to go back against that degree, right? And then they're going to cover that degree again. So you usually what we have is a three-hit wonder, I call it, because of that retrograde energy. Some people tend to get 5 hits, depending on how retrograde, where it stops and where it begins. It's all mathematics. And some people tend to have 1 hit, and that is the most potent one. So depending how your chart is structured.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Olga, for your time, your wisdom, your information, and we will see you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Good to see you.